While my wife was on the phone after a work call, I could clearly hear her whispering to someone. Once we sign the house papers, his life is over. I stood there stunned when I heard them mention the plan and a loan in my name. That shock sparked suspicion that my marriage was nothing more than a manipulated contract. I clocked out late again. That was nothing new. Fires don't care about dinner plans, and neither do half the calls that come through the station after 5. I'd spent the last hour scrubbing soot off my forearms in the locker room, then signing off on a report that should have been finished before lunch. By the time I pulled into Midwood Smokehouse on Central Avenue, my stomach felt hollow, and my shoulders carried that familiar weight, the kind that doesn't go away with sleep. Inside, the place was loud in the regular way. Sports on the TVs, people laughing too hard, plates hitting tables. I ordered my usual, grabbed a seat near the window, and checked my phone. 2 missed calls from Tanya. My wife didn't call twice unless she wanted something handled right then. I stepped outside, the way I always did when I didn't want to talk over noise. The air was cool for Charlotte, the kind that made you think of fall even when summer wasn't fully done with you. I leaned against the brick wall, watched cars creep through the parking lot, and called her back. She picked up on the second ring. "Where are you?" Her voice came out tight, not angry exactly, controlled. "Just got off shift," I said. "Stop for food. I'll be home in a bit." "You said that yesterday." "Yesterday there was a wreck on 77 and we pulled 2 kids out of a car. I didn't exactly get to choose." There was a pause. Not the kind where someone's thinking, the kind where someone's listening to somebody else in the room. "Okay," she said finally. "Just don't be too long." "How's Malik?" "He's fine." My son's name sounded like an afterthought coming from her. Tanya had never been cruel to him. She just treated him like he was part of my old life that kept showing up anyway. "Tell him I'll check his homework when I get home." "Sure." She softened a little then, the way she always did when she needed the call to end without friction. "Love you." "Love you too," I said. And I meant it, even with everything. Even with the small cuts I kept pretending didn't bleed. "Bye." "Bye." I pulled the phone away from my ear, thumb hovering over the screen to hang up. I must have hit the button wrong. Or maybe she did. Either way, the line stayed open. At first I only heard faint shuffling, then a sigh. And then Tanya spoke again, but it wasn't her wife voice. It was lower, sharper, like she'd dropped the act as soon as she thought the audience was gone. "He's on his way," she said. "Yeah, I got him to stop. He's predictable." My thumb froze. She was talking to someone, and she wasn't talking the way she talked to me. A man's voice came through, muffled but clear enough. "You sure he didn't catch anything?" Tanya gave a small laugh. It wasn't warm. "Malcolm, please. He never pushes back. Not if I keep it calm." The name hit me like a door slamming. Malcolm. Mine. Spoken like a label on a file folder. I didn't move. My heart didn't race like it does in a burning house. It slowed down instead, like my body knew it needed to stay steady to survive whatever was coming next. The man said something I couldn't make out. Tanya answered quickly. "No, the paperwork's already drafted. We just need the signature on the refinance. Once it's done, everything shifts." Refinance. My throat tightened. "He won't read the details," she continued. "He'll sign to keep the peace. He always does." A second voice joined in. A woman, older. "Make sure it's before next week. I don't want delays." That was Darlene, her mother. I knew her tone the way you know the sound of a siren. Sharp, impatient, used to being obeyed. The man laughed under his breath. "Once the loan clears, he can't do anything. House is tied up. Credit's tied up. If he leaves with the debt." Tanya didn't disagree. She sounded like she was counting steps in her head. "Exactly. And if he tries to fight it, we play it like he agreed. He'll look crazy trying to explain it." My mouth went dry. My hands started to shake, not from fear, something else. The kind of anger that doesn't explode. The kind that sinks in deep and turns into calculation. I should have ended the call. I should have said something. I should have yelled her name and let the whole thing blow up right there in the parking lot. Instead, I stood still, listening like a man who just found out the floor beneath him had been hollow the whole time. Tanya spoke again, quieter now. Just make sure Marcus has the email ready. The bank won't question it if it comes from our address. Marcus, her brother. I stared at my phone like it might crack open and show me proof that I was hearing things. But the voices didn't fade. They continued, calm and practical, like they were planning a weekend trip. Inside the restaurant, someone opened the door and laughed loudly at a joke I couldn't hear. The sound didn't reach me. Everything around me blurred into background noise. My thumb finally moved. I ended the call. For a second, the silence felt louder than the voices had been. I went back inside, walked past the counter without my food, and stepped out again before anyone could ask. My truck sat where I'd parked it, same as always. Nothing looked different. But I did. I climbed in, shut the door, and kept both hands on the steering wheel, breathing slow, eyes forward. The part of me that had always tried to fix things, smooth things over, keep everybody comfortable, it didn't have anywhere to stand anymore. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and opened my notes app. My fingers hovered over the screen as I started typing the names I'd just heard, one by one, while the engine idled and the night carried on like nothing had happened. The house felt different the moment I stepped inside. Not quieter, not louder, just angled wrong, like furniture had been moved an inch while I was gone. Tanya stood at the counter rinsing a glass that didn't need rinsing. Her back stayed turned longer than usual. "You eat?" she asked. Yeah. That was a lie. It slid out easy. I wasn't ready to explain why my hands were still empty. She nodded without looking up. "Malik's in his room." I headed down the hall. My son had his door half open, headphones on, math book spread out. He glanced up, gave me a quick smile, then went back to his work. Normal. That steadiness almost cracked something in me. In the kitchen, Darlene's voice floated from the phone on speaker. Tanya had set it down beside the sink. "I was just telling her," her mother said, "rates are changing again. People who don't act fast end up regretting it." "Mm-hmm," Tanya replied. "You talked to the bank yet?" Darlene continued. "Or is Malcolm still dragging his feet?" Dragging his feet. I leaned against the door frame, out of sight. Tanya didn't answer right away. "He's busy," she said finally. "You know how he is." That phrase had always sounded harmless before. Now it felt like a tool. Darlene sighed. "Men like him don't think long-term. Somebody has to." I waited for Tanya to push back. She didn't. The conversation shifted to groceries, then to a cousin's birthday. I stayed where I was until the call ended, then stepped into the room like I'd just arrived. Tanya startled slightly, caught it too late. "Hey," she said. "You okay?" "Fine." The word landed flat between us. That night passed without a fight. No raised voices, no accusations. We moved around each other, careful and polite, like coworkers who knew HR was watching. When we went to bed, she turned away sooner than usual. I lay there listening to the ceiling fan click, counting rotations the way I used to count breaths inside a smoke-filled hallway. Morning came fast. At the station, the shift rolled on like always. Gear checks. Coffee burned too long on the warmer. Somebody complained about overtime. I focused on routine. Routine kept things contained. Then Marcus from Engine 3 slapped my shoulder on the way out to the yard. "Hey, congrats on the refi, man." I stopped walking. "What?" He grinned, already moving past me. "Tanya told my wife you guys locked in a good rate. Smart move with the market the way it is." My mouth opened. Nothing came out. He kept going, conversation already behind him. I stood there longer than necessary, staring at the concrete, trying to decide whether to laugh or ask who else had been filled in on a decision I hadn't made. Later, during lunch, it came up again. Different table, different voice. "You staying in Charlotte long-term then?" one of the guys asked. "Guess refinancing says you are." "Guess so," I said. That was lie number 2. Nobody meant harm. That was the worst part. The comments floated by like facts already settled. I nodded, deflected, changed subjects. Each time, it felt like giving ground without realizing how much I was losing. After the shift, I sat in my truck longer than usual. The station doors closed behind me. The phone buzzed in my hand. A text from Tanya. "Mom says we should go over numbers tonight." I typed back, deleted it, then typed something safer. "Okay." The word looked smaller on the screen than it should have. On the drive home, traffic slowed near the exit. A billboard advertised low rates and easy approvals. I almost laughed at that. That evening, Darlene showed up unannounced, grocery bag in hand like a peace offering. She kissed my cheek, asked about work, settled into her usual chair. "You look tired," she said. "This is why I keep telling Tanya, you carry too much." "I manage," I replied. "That's the problem," she said gently. "You always manage. You never plan." The conversation circled like that, soft edges, no sharp accusations. Tanya watched me the whole time, eyes flicking between us, measuring. At some point, Darlene mentioned paperwork again, not directly, just enough to remind me it existed. "We'll talk later," Tanya said when her mother finally left. "About what?" I asked. She hesitated. "Everything." I nodded, walked down the hall. Malik called after me with a question about fractions. I helped him through it, step by step, voice steady, pen moving across the page. When he finished, he leaned back. "You okay, Dad?" I looked at him longer than necessary. "Yeah," I said, "just thinking." After he went back to his game, I sat on the edge of the bed and pulled out my phone again. The notes from the night before were still there. Names, fragments, half-finished thoughts. A message came through from Frank, one of the older captains. "You ever sign papers without reading them?" I stared at the screen, then typed back. "Why?" The typing bubble appeared almost immediately. "Because you don't seem like that kind of man." I set the phone down on the nightstand, stared at the wall, and listened to Tanya moving around in the kitchen, opening and closing drawers, as if the house itself were waiting for an answer I hadn't given yet. Tanya didn't come to bed until I heard her moving around, soft steps, cabinets opening and closing like she was looking for something she'd misplaced. When the mattress dipped, she stayed on her side. No good night, no small touch on my shoulder, just he. The next morning, my phone buzzed while I was brushing my teeth. Action. It came from a number I didn't recognize, but the name at the top of the message was familiar, one of the credit unions in Charlotte, the kind with a friendly logo and commercials about community. My stomach. I clicked. Nothing. Instead, I opened the message details and copied the number into my notes. Then I typed the date and time. Slow, like I was recording an incident report. "At breakfast, Ma, he's got homework," I said. "He'll do it the mutt." She poured coffee into her travel mug and kept her eyes on the counter. Her phone sat face down beside her keys. That used to mean nothing. Now it meant everything. I watched her move through the morning like she'd practiced it. Lunch packed, door locked, kiss on Malik's head. A quick touch on my arm that almost felt affectionate, but didn't last long enough to be real. "You coming with me to the bank this week?" she asked. "What bank?" She didn't blink. "For the paperwork. I told you." "You told me what?" I kept my voice even, calm. That's how I survived most things. Tanya's jaw flexed once. "Don't start, Malcolm. I'm handling it. You've been exhausted. I'm trying to help." Help. That word again. She left before I could respond. By noon, the rumor had grown legs. A guy at the station, newer, still trying to fit in, asked if it was true I was pulling equity out to buy a second property. "Who told you that?" I asked. He shrugged. "My aunt knows Tanya's mom. They said y'all are doing good. Like, real good." The way he said it made it sound like a compliment, like I should smile and thank him for noticing. I didn't. A second message came in that afternoon. Different wording, same tone. "Your document packet is ready for signature." I stared at it until the screen dimmed. Something about it scratched at my brain. Not just that it existed, that it kept coming to me like I was already part of the process, like the system believed I'd asked for this. On my break, I called the credit union from the station's landline, kept my voice low, professional. "Hi," I said. "I got a text about a mortgage application. I didn't apply for anything." There was a pause, keys clicking. "Can I get your full name, sir?" I gave it. "And your last four?" I gave that too. Silence again, longer this time. "Sir, it looks like there's a refinance application attached to your profile." My throat went dry. "Who submitted it?" "It lists you as the primary applicant. There's an email address on file and a phone number." I already knew whose email it was. I just needed to hear it. "Read it to me," She did. Tanya's email. My hand tightened around the receiver. Has anything been signed? I asked. Not finalized, she said carefully, but documents have been generated. Stop everything, I said, right now. The woman hesitated, voice shifting into that polite corporate caution. I can note your account, but we'd need you to come in person with identification to place a formal hold. I'll be there tomorrow. I hung up and stared at the wall for a moment, forcing my breathing back into rhythm. That night, I asked Tanya for our joint account login. She didn't look surprised. She looked annoyed. Why? Because it's my account too. She tapped her nails once on the counter, then smiled like she was trying to keep things sweet. Babe, I already handled it. I'm asking again. Her smile faded. You don't need it. I'm managing bills. You're busy saving people all day. Let me do this. Saving people. That was a cheap move and she knew it. I nodded like I accepted her answer. Then I walked into the living room, picked up the mail, and quietly slid every bank statement into a folder I kept from my first marriage. Back when I learned the hard way that paper doesn't lie, people do. Later, when Tanya showered, I opened the laptop and searched our email history. No shortcuts, no guessing. I typed in words like loan, rate, application. Dozens of messages popped up. Some were replies from Tanya, some were confirmations I'd never seen, and some had been moved into a folder labeled house stuff, like hiding them in plain sight made it harmless. I didn't forward anything, didn't confront her, just took screenshots, saved them to a drive she didn't know existed, and wrote down every date next to every email, like I was building a timeline for someone who'd need it later. Down the hall, Malik laughed at something on his game. In the bathroom, Tanya hummed, carefree. I kept scrolling, thumbs steady, eyes focused, until I found an email with Marcus copied, and the subject line read, Signature Strategy. Tanya didn't wait for the weekend. Thursday evening, she told me we were driving to Greensboro for dinner at her mom's. She said it was already decided, like my only role was to show up and smile. Malik was at his friend's house, and that made it easier for her. No witnesses who mattered. The drive took just over an hour. Tanya played a playlist I didn't recognize and talked about nothing. Traffic, her coworker's new car, a sale at Target. Every few minutes she glanced at her phone, thumb moving fast, then she'd toss it back in her lap like it hadn't happened. Darlene opened the door before we even knocked. There's my girl, she said, hugging Tanya tight, then turning to me with the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes. Malcolm. Marcus was already inside, leaning on the counter like he owned the place. He lifted his chin at me, a quiet challenge, then looked away. Dinner wasn't dinner. It was a meeting with plates. Darlene served baked chicken and green beans, but she kept steering the conversation back to money. Tanya nodded along. Marcus barely spoke. Everything's ready. We just need your signature tonight so we can lock the rate. I stared at the folder without touching it. My hands stayed flat on the table, calm. The same way I kept them when somebody panicked on a scene and I had to keep the room from spinning. I'm not signing anything tonight, I said. Tanya's eyes flashed. Then she forced a smile. Why are you doing this? She asked, like I was embarrassing her, not protecting myself. Because I didn't apply for a refinance, I said, and I didn't ask Marcus to draft anything. Marcus's smile dropped. You accusing me of something? He asked. I met his eyes. I'm saying my name is on paperwork I didn't authorize. Darlene sucked in a breath, then leaned back in her chair like she'd just been insulted in her own house. You hear yourself? She said. After everything we've done for you? I almost laughed at that. They hadn't done anything for me. They'd taken, and I'd let them, because I thought that's what keeping peace looked like. Tanya reached for the folder and flipped it open, then turned it toward me, tapping the signature line with her nail. It's right there, she said. You sign, we move forward. We don't, we lose the rate. That's real money, Malcolm. Marcus added, low and impatient, stop making this about ego. Ego. That word hit harder than I expected. Not because it was true, but because it was how they were going to sell the story. The firefighter captain with a big head, the stubborn husband, the man who wouldn't do what was best for his family. I swallowed once. I'm not signing, I repeated. The air shifted. The polite mask disappeared like a switch had been flipped. Tanya pushed her chair back so hard it scraped. So you'd rather see us struggle? She snapped. Who is us? I asked. Because I'm the one who'd be responsible for that loan. Darlene raised her voice, not shouting, but sharp enough to cut. You're always the victim, aren't you? Always acting like the world is out to get you. Meanwhile, my daughter is trying to build a future and you keep her stuck. Marcus shook his head slowly, like I was disappointing. Man, you're selfish, he said. You know that? You've always been selfish. You just hide it behind that uniform. That one landed. Deep. I'd spent my whole life doing the opposite of selfish. I'd run into burning buildings while other people ran out. I'd taken overtime so Malik could stay in his school. I'd carried bills, carried grief, carried responsibility like it was the only way to be a man. And in that moment, sitting at their table, I understood something that made my stomach sink. They didn't see any of that. To them, I wasn't a husband. I wasn't a father. I wasn't a person. I was a signature. I stood up slowly and closed the folder without touching the papers. I'm leaving, I said. Tanya scoffed. Of course you are. Darlene waved her hand like she was dismissing a child. Go cool off, she said. You'll come back when you realize you're wrong. I didn't respond. I walked to the door, grabbed my jacket, and stepped outside. The night air hit my face, and my hands finally started to tremble. Not from fear, but from the effort of holding myself together in front of people who wanted me to break. I got into the truck, started the engine, and pulled out of the driveway. The phone buzzed almost immediately. A text from Tanya. Don't do something stupid. We can still fix this. My thumb hovered over the screen as I kept driving, the road stretching ahead, and the folder still sitting on Darlene's table like a weapon waiting for my return. The truck's GPS tried to send me home, like it didn't know home had moved. I kept driving until the highway signs started looking unfamiliar, then pulled into a Walmart lot off the exit, parked under a light pole, killed the engine, and sat there with my hands still on the wheel. Tanya's text stayed on my screen. Don't do something stupid. We can still fix this. Fix. Like the problem was my reaction, not what they'd tried to do. I didn't reply. I opened my notes again and added one more line. Greensboro dinner, folder, Marcus, pressure. Then I called Frank. Not the captain from the station, the other Frank. Frank Dwyer, loan officer at the credit union. A guy I'd met years ago when I helped his niece after an apartment fire. He'd insisted on buying me lunch, then kept my number like people do when they respect your work. He picked up fast. Malcolm? I need a favor, I said. You sound like you're in trouble. I am, but I'm not panicking. Frank exhaled once. Where are you? Not home. Good. Come see me first thing in the morning. 8. I'll put you with our fraud specialist. Bring your ID. Don't click any links they sent you. Don't sign anything. And Malcolm? Yeah? Don't talk to your wife about this tonight. I stared through the windshield at shoppers pushing carts like their lives were simple. I already stopped talking, I said. Frank didn't laugh. He just said, good. I slept in my truck for a couple hours, then drove back toward Charlotte before sunrise. Stopped at a gas station, washed my face, bought coffee I barely tasted. By the time I parked outside the credit union, I'd already decided I wasn't going to lose control in their building. I'd been through too many emergencies to let my voice shake in a room with carpet and glass walls. Frank met me at the door. You look like you didn't sleep. I slept enough. He led me through a hallway into a small office. No fancy view, just a desk, a printer, and a woman sitting with a laptop open and a folder already waiting. This is Leah, Frank said. She handles fraud cases. Leah stood, shook my hand, steady grip. Captain Grant, she said. I'm sorry you're here. I'm not, I replied. I'd rather know. She nodded once. No pity, just work. Let's start simple, she said. Did you initiate a refinance? No. Did you authorize anyone to do it on your behalf? No. Have you signed anything related to your mortgage in the last 30 days? No. Leah turned the laptop toward me. My name sat at the top of the application. My address, my social security number. The income section had numbers close enough to be believable. The email was Tanya's. The phone number was mine. They used your contact info but routed everything through her email, Leah said. That's common when someone wants control of communication. I watched the cursor move as she clicked through pages. My signature appeared on one document, shaky and wrong. "That's not mine," I said. Leah zoomed in. "I agree," she replied. "Your signature has consistent pressure at the start and a certain slant. This one doesn't." Frank leaned forward. "And see this?" he said, tapping the screen. They requested a cash-out component. Not huge, but enough to matter. Cash out. Equity pulled from the house. I felt heat climb up my neck, but I didn't let it reach my mouth. "Where does that money go?" I asked. Leah clicked again. "They listed a secondary account for deposit. Not yours." She wrote the last 4 digits down on a notepad and slid it across. "Not my bank. Not my account." My jaw tightened. "So what happens now?" I asked. Leah folded her hands. "We can freeze the application immediately. We'll flag your profile, and we'll open a formal investigation. Depending on what we find, this may go to our legal team and to law enforcement," Frank added, quieter. "Mortgage fraud is serious, Malcolm. This isn't a family argument." That sentence landed clean. For days, I'd been trying to frame it as betrayal, disrespect, manipulation. Those words had weight, but they lived in the emotional world. In here, behind this desk, it had a different name. Fraud. Leah slid another paper toward me. "This is an affidavit stating you did not authorize the application. We'll need you to sign it in front of me." I signed it slowly, making sure every curve matched my real handwriting. Frank walked me out afterward and stopped near the lobby. "You did the right thing," he said. "I did the necessary thing." He studied my face like he wanted to say something more human, then settled for practical. "She's going to notice the freeze," he warned. "They'll call her." Let them. Before I reached the truck, my phone buzzed. A missed call from Tanya, then another, then a text. "Why is the bank saying the application is on hold?" A second message came right behind it. "Marcus says you're trying to sabotage us." The word "us" again. I got another text, this one from a number I didn't have saved. "Man to man, you're making this ugly. Call me. Marcus." I didn't answer any of them. On the way back to the station, I stopped at a red light and glanced at my notifications. Facebook. A post from Tanya's cousin. "Some people don't know how to support their own family. Sad." No name attached, but everyone would know whose story it was. That's when I understood the next part of their plan. If they couldn't get my signature quietly, they'd use shame to drag it out of me. They'd make me the villain in a story they wrote. My phone buzzed again. Tanya this time. "Come home. We need to talk." I drove past my own exit, kept going straight, and opened my contacts with one hand, scrolling until I found a number I hadn't called in years. An attorney a fellow captain once recommended after a nasty divorce. I tapped it once, then hit call before I had time to second-guess myself. The attorney's assistant didn't ask for my life story. She asked for dates. "When did you first learn about the refinance?" "Monday." "When did you speak to the credit union?" "Today." "Do you have copies of the texts and emails?" "Yes." "Can you come in tomorrow at 9? "I'll be there." That was it. No sympathy, no drama, just a time slot on a calendar. I respected that more than any comforting words. After the call ended, I stopped at a Staples near the station and bought a cheap accordion folder, 2 flash drives, and a small notebook with a hard cover. It felt ridiculous, walking through aisles of office supplies like a man shopping for pencils, when my marriage was being turned into a case file. Still, I kept moving. Back in the truck, I labeled the folder with a black pen. Grant, mortgage. Then I drove to my storage unit on South Tryon. It held old furniture, Malik's baby clothes, boxes from my first marriage I hadn't had the heart to toss. I pulled out a lockbox from the back and set it on the concrete floor. Inside were things I'd saved for Malik, his birth certificate copy, his mother's death certificate, my discharge papers from the National Guard, documents I didn't trust anyone else to handle. I added to that pile, bank statements from the last 6 months, screenshots printed at Staples, the affidavit Leah had signed with me, a fresh copy of my driver's license, my signature sample written 10 times on blank paper in different moods, different angles, different speed, so nobody could claim I was confused later. At home, Tanya kept calling. I let it ring. Then she shifted tactics. "Malcolm, you're embarrassing me." A minute later, Marcus says you're going to get us in trouble. Then, please, just come home and we'll talk like adults. I didn't respond. I saved every message. By nightfall, Marcus started texting from new numbers, like he thought persistence could wear me down. You really want cops involved? You don't understand what you're doing. Don't make Tanya suffer because you're stubborn. The words didn't scare me. The pattern did. It meant they felt the ground slipping. People don't threaten you when they're winning. They threaten you when they're losing control. Around 10, I logged into the credit bureaus and pulled my full report. Open accounts, hard inquiries, old car loan from years back. Everything looked normal except one new inquiry tied to the refinance. I wrote the confirmation numbers down anyway. Then I sat at the kitchen table, opened my notebook, and started building the timeline like I was documenting a line of duty incident. Monday, barbecue call. Tuesday, text from bank. Thursday, Greensboro folder. Friday, credit union hold. Each entry got a timestamp. Each name got spelled correctly. Tanya's car pulled into the driveway around midnight. Her heels clicked across the floor. The bedroom door opened, then closed. A few seconds later, she walked into the kitchen, hair still damp, robe tied tight. "So you're just ignoring me now?" she asked. I kept writing. "I'm listening," I said. "I'm just not talking." Her eyes narrowed, like she was trying to read the page upside down. "What is that?" My pen didn't stop moving as I added one more line beneath the others, then capped it and slid the notebook closer to my side of the table. Tanya didn't sit down. She hovered at the edge of the kitchen like she was waiting for me to apologize. "You're really doing this?" she said. I slid the notebook into the folder and stood up. Not fast, not slow, just deliberate. "I have a meeting at 9, I said. "With who?" "Someone who reads contracts for a living." Her lips pressed together. The softness she used in public drained out of her face. "So you're treating me like a criminal now?" she snapped. "After everything I've done for you and Malik?" The way she said my son's name made my chest tighten. She was pulling him into it on purpose. "Don't," I said. "Don't what?" "Don't use him." She scoffed like I'd insulted her. "You're paranoid," she said. "Marcus was only trying to help us. My mom was only trying to help. You always do this, Malcolm. You get quiet and then you punish people with that silence." Punish. That word came from someone who'd never carried consequences for anything. I didn't argue. I walked down the hall and checked Malik's room. He wasn't there yet, still at his friend's house. His backpack sat by the bed like always. Seeing it made the situation feel more real. If this blew up, it wouldn't just hit me, it would hit him. That's what kept my voice level. When I returned, Tanya had moved closer. Her phone was in her hand, screen lit. "You need to call the bank and tell them to release it," she said. "They told me you put a hold. That's insane." "It's not insane," I replied. "It's my name." She raised her chin. "It's our house. It's our house until someone uses my signature like a weapon." Her eyes flashed. For a second, she looked like she might throw the phone. Instead, she smiled, quick and ugly. "You keep talking like you're the only one who matters," she said. "But if this doesn't go through, we lose everything. My mom already told people. Everyone knows. You're making me look stupid." There it was again. Not the house, not the debt, not the ethics. How she looked. The next morning, Malik came home from school with a flyer for a field trip and a permission slip. He set it on the counter. "Dad, can you sign this?" Tanya walked in right behind him, already talking. "Your father doesn't like signing things," she said, laughing like it was a joke. Malik looked at me confused. I took the paper, signed it, and handed it back. "There," I said. "Done." Tanya's smile twitched. She didn't like that. Malik went to his room, and Tanya followed me into the living room, voice dropping. "I talked to Marcus," she said. "He said if you keep pushing, he'll tell people the truth." "What truth?" "That you're unstable," she said calmly. "That you're grieving. That you never got over your first wife." The words hit harder than I expected because she said them like she'd practiced, like she'd rehearsed the worst thing she could aim at me and decided it was worth it. My first wife's name stayed in my throat. I didn't give Tanya the satisfaction of hearing it. Instead, I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. "Where are you going?" she called after me. "To pick up Malik's medication," I said, because I actually needed to. because life still ran on errands even when everything else was collapsing. I drove to the pharmacy, waited in line, signed a receipt, and kept my face neutral the whole time. Outside, my phone lit up with a flood of notifications. A group chat with Tanya's cousins, screenshots, messages, half jokes about men who don't support their wives. Then a private message from Darlene. If you embarrass my daughter, don't come back to this family. I sat in the car with the medication bag in my lap and stared at that line until the words lost shape. No part of me wanted to fight them in public. No part of me wanted Malik dragged into gossip, into courtrooms, into whispers at school. But the fear that mattered more was simpler. If I stayed quiet, they would do it anyway, and I'd lose the only things I cared about while they smiled and called it family. I started the engine, drove straight to the attorney's office, and walked inside without checking if Tanya had texted again. The attorney's office smelled like paper and old coffee. No marble lobby, no dramatic courtroom portraits, just a receptionist who didn't smile too much, and a waiting room full of people staring at their phones, like the world had already bruised them. A woman in her late 40s walked out and called my name. Malcolm Grant? I stood and followed her into a small conference room. She didn't waste time shaking my hand. I'm Erica Simmons, she said, sliding a yellow pad across the table. Tell me what happened. Start with the first thing you heard. I handed her the folder. The prints, the screenshots, the timeline, the affidavit from the credit union. Erica flipped through it like she'd done this 1,000 times, eyes moving fast, pen tapping twice whenever something caught her. You did the right thing coming in early, she said. This has all the markings of a coordinated fraud attempt. The words sounded strange out loud, even though I'd already accepted it. They're saying I'm paranoid, I replied. Erica gave a short, humorless laugh. People who steal always say the victim is unstable. It's not creative, it's just effective. She asked for names. I gave them. Tanya, Darlene, Marcus. She wrote each one down, then circled Marcus. He's the operator, she said. Your wife is the access point. That line hit harder than it should have. Access point. Like my marriage was a password they'd learned. My phone buzzed on the table. Tanya again. Erica didn't look at it. Let her call, she said. You don't argue with someone while they're building a record against you. A knock came at the door. Erica's assistant stepped in and handed her a printout. Erica scanned it, then slid it toward me. It was a notice from the credit union's fraud department, addressed to me. Official language, case reference number, a line that mattered. Additional applications associated with the same IP address and email domain are under review. I read it twice. That's not just mine, I said. No, Erica replied. And that's why you're in a strong position. My chest tightened, not with relief, but with the weight of what it meant. Tanya hadn't just crossed a line with me. She'd walked the same path before, maybe with someone else, maybe with another family member's name, maybe with Marcus coaching her through each step. Erica leaned back. Here's what we do, she said. We send a formal notice to the bank. We request the full packet, and we demand a preservation of evidence. Then we file for a protective order regarding marital assets, quietly. What about criminal charges? I asked. That's coming, she said, but we don't rush that part until we control the paper trail. Outside, my phone vibrated again, this time a text from Marcus. You think you're smart? You don't know what you're messing with. Another message followed. Stop before you lose your family. I stared at those words, then handed the phone to Erica. She read it, raised an eyebrow, and wrote something on her pad. Good, she said. Threats help. That sentence would have sounded cold from anyone else. From her, it sounded like clarity. On the drive home, Tanya's car was gone. Malik's bike lay on its side in the yard like he'd dropped it in a rush. Inside, the house looked normal again, and that made it worse. A note sat on the counter in Tanya's handwriting. Going to Mom's. Don't do anything you can't take back. I picked it up, folded it once, and slipped it into the folder with the rest of the evidence. Then I opened the laptop and started exporting every email thread, one by one, while the printer warmed up behind me. The courthouse in Mecklenburg County doesn't care who you are. Captain, husband, father. None of that matters once you go through security and step into a hallway full of people holding folders like lifelines. I showed up in a plain button-down and slacks. No uniform, no badge. Erica told me to look like a man who came to handle business, not a man looking for sympathy. Tanya arrived 20 minutes later with Darlene and Marcus. She wore a cream sweater and that careful face she saved for church and work meetings. Darlene clutched her purse like it was armor. Marcus walked in like he owned the building, loud enough that the bailiff glanced his way. Tanya spotted me and smiled like she was relieved. "Thank God you came," she said, loud enough for the people nearby to hear. "I've been worried about you." I didn't answer. Erica stood beside me, calm, hands folded. "Ms. Grant," she said, "we're ready." We sat in a conference room with a mediator at the head of the table. Neutral tone, neutral suit, neutral eyes. Tanya started first, voice trembling in a practiced way. "I don't know what happened to Malcolm," she said. "He's been off. Ever since his first wife passed. He shuts down. He gets suspicious. I only tried to help us. I only tried to keep our house." Marcus nodded hard, like each sentence was truth. "He's trying to ruin my sister because he's prideful," he added. "That's all it is." Darlene dabbed at her eyes. "My daughter's scared," she whispered. "We just want peace." Erica didn't react. She let them finish. Then she slid one folder across the table to the mediator. "This is the mortgage application," she said, "generated without my client's consent. Here is the affidavit signed in front of the credit union's fraud specialist. Here are the emails routed through Ms. Grant's account. Here are the account numbers where the cash-out proceeds were directed." The mediator flipped through the pages, expression tightening. Tanya's smile faltered. That's not what happened," she said, voice rising. "Marcus helped me understand the paperwork. Malcolm agreed. He always said he trusted me." Erica looked at her. "Then you won't mind explaining why his signature was forged," she said, "and why the bank's fraud unit opened a case tied to multiple applications from the same IP address." Marcus shifted in his chair. "You can't prove that," he said quickly. Erica didn't argue. She opened her laptop and turned the screen. "We don't need to argue," she replied. "This is the bank's notice. This is the case number. This is the preservation request already filed." Silence filled the room the way smoke fills a hallway, fast and heavy. Tanya's hands started shaking, real this time, not the delicate tremble she used for show. Darlene leaned toward her, whispering something sharp. Marcus tried to laugh, but the sound came out wrong. "This is ridiculous," he said. "He's overreacting." The mediator cleared his throat. "Ms. Grant," he said to Tanya, "I need you to understand this is not a marital disagreement anymore. This is potential fraud." Tanya's eyes snapped to me, pleading and furious at the same time. "You're really doing this to me?" she hissed. I spoke for the first time. "You did it to yourself," I said. No yelling, no speech, just a fact placed on the table like the documents were. Erica leaned in slightly. "My client will not be signing any refinance documents," she said. "He is requesting separation of finances effective immediately. He is also seeking an order preventing any sale, loan, or transfer of marital property without written consent." The mediator nodded slowly, taking notes. Tanya's breath came short. Marcus stared at the table. Darlene looked like she'd swallowed something bitter. Erica gathered the folders, stood up, and tapped my sleeve. We walked out without arguing in the hallway, without giving them anything to perform with. Outside, my phone buzzed once, then twice, then again. I didn't check it. I unlocked my truck, slid into the driver's seat, and pulled out my notebook as Erica's office number popped into my mind, ready to call her next step in motion. Malik stayed with me that week, not because a judge said so, not because Tanya asked. He stayed because I told him he could, and because the house felt steadier without the arguing leaking through walls. We ate simple meals. He did homework at the kitchen table. I signed school forms without hesitation, and drove him to practice like nothing else was happening. Life kept its rhythm. That surprised me. The legal part moved on without needing my presence. Erica handled the filings. The credit union sent formal letters. A fraud investigator left a voicemail asking for clarification on timelines I'd already documented. I returned the call, answered plainly, and went back to work. Tanya didn't come home. At first there were messages, long ones, angry ones, pleading ones. Then they slowed. Then they stopped. Marcus tried once more, a short text about family and mistakes. I blocked the number and didn't think about it again. One afternoon, Erica called while I was folding laundry. "The bank escalated," she said. "Charges may follow. I don't need you in court unless they subpoena you." "Okay." "You sound lighter," she added. I looked around the room. Malik's socks in a pile, sunlight on the floor, the hum of the dryer. "I'm quieter," I said. "There's a difference." She understood that. The house no longer felt like a place I had to defend. No drawers slammed, no careful conversations, just space. That took getting used to. For years, I'd filled silence with compromise, with extra effort, with explaining myself until I was tired. Now silence didn't ask anything from me. One evening, I found a box in the garage with Tanya's handwriting on the side. Old photos, a few books, things she'd left behind when she moved out. I taped it shut and set it by the door. Erica had already advised me on next steps: inventory, boundaries, no contact unless through counsel. I didn't feel cruel doing it. I felt finished. Later that night, Malik asked if things were going to be okay. "They already are," I said. He nodded, satisfied with that answer, and went back to his room. I sat at the table with my notebook open, flipping through the pages I'd filled during the worst weeks. Dates, names, facts, proof. It all looked smaller now, necessary, but no longer heavy. I tore out the last unused page, folded it, and slid it into the folder, closed the cover, stood up and put the folder on the highest shelf in the hall closet, behind winter coats and an old toolbox. Tomorrow would come with its own problems. Work, parenting, bills, ordinary things. I turned off the kitchen light, walked down the hall, and checked that Malik's door was closed before heading to my room, already thinking about the morning schedule as the house settled into a quiet that finally belonged to me.